Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the work session to order. First thing on the agenda is snow and ice operational plan update. I think Mike is doing that, right?
Yep, and I've also got Kenny and Chris here with me. Kenny are, of course, the street superintendent, and Chris is our foreman, and these guys are pretty instrumental in the plan.
It's not responding, I'm trying.
I got rid of it.
All right, welcome everyone. This is the just a work session to kind of talk about the plan, and what precipitated this is we did get some feedback last year because we've had our plan is published on the website as you would expect, and the comment was your plan hasn't been updated since 2008, and I'm very much a proponent of if it's not broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, upon review, there are some things that we were doing that were not reflected in the plan, and there were some things in the plan that were being directed that weren't being done because it just wasn't feasible and just didn't seem to fit the operations and what you're doing. So the whole purpose of tonight was just to kind of talk a little bit through the plan that we're proposing, which is essentially to codify the operations that we're doing now. I think in the agenda item you can clearly see bold, this is not a reduction in service. This is not intended to be a reduction in service. This is really just to kind of show what we're doing, and you'll see some items where we've actually increased some thresholds because it really does reflect how we're operating today. So as you can see, our current plan for 2008 has the following sentences, and another part of the course plan is our code of ordinance, and that's all outlined in Article 4, Section 15. It kind of talks about our snow routes and what people are responsible for and such. So with that, we'll just kind of step through. And when I say the plan was originally adopted in 2008, that is accurate, but we have made periodic updates. And as you can see, in 2025, we updated our snow routes, and we added the trail along DeSoto Road as an item that we were now including in our priority list. So it was definitely a working document and one that was modified accordingly, and we didn't just ignore things that were added, but this is a good time to do that and kind of bring it back into operation with what we're doing things. So those of you that have done Citizens Academy and new council orientation, this is the slide from our Citizens Academy deck. This is what we show everyone, and this is kind of an operational plan of what we got. This kind of shows our equipment and how it is tasked. And I think one thing we really want to kind of show on this is, one, I put an X through snow classification because we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a bit. And second is, we've added some what I call green, and green are not organic assets to streets. So red are organic assets to parks, blue are organic assets to streets, and then the green are kind of additional assets that we can call upon when we need to. One is wastewater treatment plant they do their own parking lot, and they have started doing some fire station support as well. And City Hall, when we added the City Hall truck, we made sure it was plow capable, and we still keep the Ranger as a smaller plow, and I will run that one on occasion as well as some other people. There are times and places where the smaller equipment works really well. And then we've got a couple skid steer loaders that we also utilize, and we'll kind of go through that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the general policy stuff you can kind of see in there. The new proposal will have the plan, and then instead of having like 6 annexes, we're just going to go with our 3 annexes, which are our priority map, personnel and departmental responsibilities. And this will be kind of general overview kind of stuff because everyone understands their task, but we want to make sure we do codify kind of how we're working. And then Annex 3 will be a FEMA storm reporting requirement. And some of that is anytime that a federal disaster is declared, and it's not out of the ordinary. I mean, it's not every year kind of thing, but every few years we will get a federal disaster. In particular, the Christmas storm of 2009 will always stick in my head as one of the more intensive storms that we had. If anybody was here there, the Christmas storm of 2009 was crazy because it was Christmas Day and the sun came out, but only because we were in the eye of what was obviously a giant storm, and then the backside rolled around and we just got hammered. You guys probably remember that vividly. It is that one will probably, and hopefully, I hope that will stick in my head as the most intensive storm I've ever had to experience. So, so anything in blue and italic is just some changes to the existing text in the general policy. It's mostly just to update the stuff that we're working on and just kind of make it operate the way we're operating. And I think so. The most important thing on this slide here is that is the way we address cul-de-sacs in the winter. We do have a problem with people parking in cul-de-sacs in the winter, and when the cul-de-sac has vehicles parked in it during snow operations, we delay its priority. That is because we've actually entered a cul-de-sac before and we've encountered contact with vehicles in there with the equipment, and that now our vehicle's offline, their vehicle's damaged, we have to do reports, and it really just, it completely slows our response as well as opens us up to some liability and some other problems. So if there are vehicles in the cul-de-sac, we will delay it. And just for a reporting requirement, Kenny was explaining to me, most of the time what happens is our guys will take photos and they will text it so that we have a documentation of what the condition was when we encountered it. Because there have been some times where our interpretation of the timeline and the residents' interpretation of the timeline don't always meet. So we want to make sure that that provides it.
I know my cul-de-sac is marked. You can't park in a cul-de-sac during snow. Are all of them marked that way?
Most of them are. We bring out a lot of signs that we put out, but not all of them, no.
Okay.
But we can mark them off with
Yep.
permission, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
approval.
And if it's
We've had some that we have marked before in the past, and we've had some very unhappy residents that requested that the signs be taken out because it's on their property.
right.
So we've had to remove a couple. We have one hammerhead in particular that's been posted more than once, and the signs mysteriously disappeared. Posted on.
'Cause I assume if it's posted no parking during snow and they're parked in there, one of our trucks go in there and clip their vehicle, they're still liable because they're parked there.
I don't know that that is the case. I know that you know, we will not enter if we deem it to be
Okay.
a situation where we're not comfortable for, you know, that reason.
Okay.
You know, if it can be a policy of where we post every cul-de-sac in the winter. I mean, it is a possibility. We typically post our more problematic ones, but I'm absolutely in favor of that, and I can have the plan reflect a posting of cul-de-sacs.
Do you guys think that maybe people are paranoid to park in their yards? You know, because like some places, some cities, like I know, like, but for emergency snow purposes, like maybe we could ask that or announce that for the cul-de-sac people. Because I'm assuming a lot of people have kids, multiple cars. Like, how are they gonna move them if they don't have enough space besides putting it in their yard?
We haven't really actually encountered that. But we have, yeah, you're right about the fact that there are some where it's quite obvious that there's not a whole lot of other places that they could put their vehicle. We actually, though, unfortunately, we do have some where cars are in cul-de-sacs and the driveways stand empty. I've got a number of photos if you'd like to see those. So it is a challenge. And we try to be cognizant of that challenge. We've got a couple dead-end streets that are particularly difficult because they're on older parts of the town where the driveway can maybe hold one car. And you're right, if you've got multiple vehicles in a household with only one car parking on the driveway, it does.
And if it's a cul-de-sac, the driveway normally gets narrower at the street. So typically where you have 4 cars, you can only have 2.5.
Right. So it is a challenge. It's a big challenge. It's a challenge for a lot of reasons. One, parking, and two, just assuming the cul-de-sac has 0 cars in it, it takes 20 to 30 minutes to clear a cul-de-sac where you can, in 20 or 30 minutes, you can go down 4 or 5 miles of roadway. You know, it is a tremendous commitment of resource when we're doing cul-de-sacs. Again, these are just mostly, a lot of these are just updates to make it look like what we are doing. We took out references to Channel 2. We no longer maintain Channel 2, so now we just use social media. And to be honest, in 2008 when this came out, social media was still fairly early in its infancy. I think, I guess we could have put MySpace in there at the time, but we're a lot farther along. And social media is I don't think people, in 2008, I know that I was very new to it. So I can imagine that, now I think it's ubiquitous. I did a lot of wills and to mays, meaning, giving us the option to do things like if your plan says that you will do something and you don't, now you're in violation of your plan. But if your plan says you may do something, it gives you the option to adjust in the storm as it goes. We're ratcheting back our snow categories a little bit, just to better reflect what we actually do. In our old snow categories talked about not doing much of anything till 8 inches or until 4 inches, but there's times that 1.5 inches will go in plowed depending on what we've experienced. So we try to align the plan with our operations. Again, we've just kind of cleaned up a lot of it. Some of it's wordsmithing and just making it look like so. Again, these are the plans as they exist. I did make some changes. Class 1 used to be 8 inches of snow. I'm proposing to move it to 6 inches of snow because 6 inches of snow is, it is more common than 8. And when we have 6 inches of snow, it is really an all hands on deck operation at that point. You don't have a whole lot of flexibility. You pretty much have committed all resources at that point. Class 2 used to be 2 to 8, and now we're moving it back from 1.5 to 6. And then our Class 3 storm is 1.5 inches of snow or less, and it used to be 2 or less, and that's more along the line to say that at about 1.5 inches we will be plowing. We're not going to wait for 2 inches. We don't. Yeah. And we don't want to get into the situation where we're standing there going, "Oh, we're not plowing because we didn't quite get to where we're at." And I think you guys everyone's lived here a long time knows that there's a great deal of pride in our snow removal operations, and it's in no small part due to Kenny and Chris. They've been doing it for a long time, and they really do take a lot of pride, and our crew takes a lot of pride in doing what we do to the level that we do it, and we don't want to see that reduction at all. So, just a couple things we want to talk about to looking forward to the future. We are getting ready to add 5 more cul-de-sacs with Monroe Manor and another 1.25 miles of roadway. So again, at some point we're going to have to think about how we address those additional resources or those additional responsibilities and obligations. So we'll have to do that. Right now we do a pre-treat on a rare occasion, and when I say that is, we get a lot of rain turning into ice and snow. You can't really pre-treat with the equipment that we have now. We don't want to put rock salt out and have it washed into the storm drains. We don't want to go through a lot of that. Leavenworth, in conjunction with Leavenworth County, has started a salt brine application. We've talked about it. We've proposed some CNSs in the past where we look at it. It makes it tricky for us because we don't have a truck that we could just dedicate to that. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for us to consider. And the problem with a slide-in, slide-out unit, which is what we've looked at, is that we would have to slide it in, pre-treat, slide it out, and then get our truck prepared for the actual event. We have a lot of preparation that goes into events. We like to put the plows on when it's 40 degrees versus 14 degrees. So we like to make sure that everything is as ready as it can be when a storm event's coming. But we do want to start thinking about pre-treatment for a couple reasons. One, because it does provide a little bit of help if you have a pretty solid forecast and prevents it from sticking, especially if it comes in pretty heavily. And then it's a little more cost effective if you are uncertain as to the composition of the precipitation, meaning if you get a little more rain before you get snow. That really is tough for us because the ground's wet and all of a sudden it freezes and now a little bit behind. So, and just some things that we want to kind of touch on real quick. There is the difference in our chemical application. We'll cover that in the plan too. Right now we use a calcium chloride mixture that will actually go down to about 5 degrees, pretty effective. Rock salt stops being effective at about 15 degrees, so we do seem to get a lot of really cold. The worst is the snow followed by the real cold, and then we sometimes have to add sand into the operation, and all that is going to be addressed in our plan. And then the other thing is the aging equipment. Some of our equipment's fairly old. I mean, our big truck's approaching 20 years old, and it works really well. In some ways, it works better because it's pre-emissions, so it doesn't break as often as some of our newer equipment. So, and then with that, you guys have any other comments you guys want to add while we're? Okay. And I'll open it up to any questions.
You were talking
Again,
about the
Any
slide,
questions?
the slide-in salt rigs. Do those hang in the air when you're not using them, or do they sit on the ground?
We would want to rack them. If we don't
Right.
rack them, it just would be hard to get them in and out. We just
Right.
same way we put our spreaders in a rack.
Right.
You keep it up in a rack, then you can back in underneath it and set it down.
Up and
pull
down,
it out.
right.
So, and again, we're going to need to build some more rack space, even with our current equipment. We cobbled together another rack for one of our 1 tons, or another spreader for one of our 1 tons. So, I really am. We do a lot with the resources that we're given, and a lot of that's because our crew takes a great deal of pride, takes care of their equipment, and is very capable and consistent. We are fortunate that we have a seasoned staff that's been doing it for a lot of years, and we're able to, when we bring in new employees, we're able to what we call a right seat ride, let them sit on the side and watch before we let them, operate the equipment. And we have enough routes that, and again, some of the smaller equipment, we can put them in there. I plowed in the Ranger for a while. I plowed some of the bigger trucks. I won't get into any big trucks, but I'll push it with the 3/4 ton, pretty confident, or the 1/2 ton. But I struggle in the 1 tons because they're spreaders, and you better be good with your mirrors. You better be good with your mirrors because those things are really wide and they do not have, you can't look over your shoulder because you can't see.
Anybody got questions for Mike on this?
I don't have any questions, but Kenny, Chris, and team, before I ever took or went to Lansing, the Citizen Academy, I was completely impressed by the snow removal during the times when we first moved here. Great job, and your team is so professional. I really appreciate all the hard work you guys do. Yep.
I've got one more comment, though. You are right about our crews taking pride in their work. And especially if you're on social media, you'll see people post pictures of our neighbors to the north, the roads up there, and then they'll post pictures of our roads. Not to talk bad about them, but they'll point out a significant difference in our roads and their roads. And that makes a big difference. So
Even our neighbors south.
Yeah.
Again,
And I'll talk bad about them.
no, our guys take a great deal of pride in what they do. I really appreciate, and they work hard. And because we're a smaller crew, we ask a lot. Sometimes we have to split the crew if we're going to be running operations longer than 12 hours because we've got things in place to protect the crew, but at the same time we got called back and sometimes we get caught. The prophets of doom on the news stations don't get it right all the time.
What?
So they will do that. But again, snow and ice removal is probably one of our most intensive operations that we encounter in the year. And it's also the one operation that impacts a lot of residents. Almost everyone is impacted by the snow and ice operation.
Yeah.
So we take that very seriously, and we want to make sure that we provide the level of service to the residents that to the best of our abilities within the resources we're given.
Yeah.
Thank
You guys
you.
do a great job. Appreciate all your efforts.
thanks, guys.
That it, Mike?
Yeah, we're good. If
Item
you don't have-
number
if there are no
2.
more que- if there-
No, nobody had any more.
We will be I have one other thing I'm just going to bring up, and we'll be bringing it to a regular session meeting. We had a fairly mild winter, so we're looking to do some maintenance on some of our equipment. So we'll be bringing that back before the council. We're looking to maybe replace the cover on our salt mill. It's what, 2011 when it was put in? Yeah, 2000. Yeah, it's starting to show some age, and since we didn't spend all of our salt and sand money this year, we'll be talking about that. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Item number 2 is Bittersweet Housing Development RFQ discussion. And Josh will be leading that.
I will. Good evening, council members. And so for some of you, this will be a kind of a rehash of some conversations we have already had in September. But just to bring us all up to speed, a couple of months ago, came to you with a proposal to consider the utilization of city-owned property as an incubator of sorts for a housing development. I was looking around the city, realized that we have very limited vacancy, both on the for sale and the for rent sides of the categories. Of course, not including abandoned or unused properties that people are not doing anything with. But knowing that one of the priorities that has been established for staff by you guys is housing development and economic development, wanted to come up with an idea of kind of combining both of those things, and came up with utilizing the existing city-owned property to the east of the Aquatic Center, and developed a site plan with an architecture firm that I know does good work, and so we got a site plan from them. Came to you and said, "Hey, can I start pushing this around to developers in the area?" And in September, you guys gave the blessing on that. And so here's where we're at. I want to emphasize before I kind of flip through the site plan. The site plan is conceptual. The site plan is not necessarily what will be built. In my conversations with developers since then, one of their first questions, if not the first question, was, do we need to use these plans? I'm not going to tell a developer that you must use these plans, these home plans, this site plan. So instead of a request for proposal, we are going down a request for qualifications. So the idea behind the difference is I want the city to be very, very comfortable with whoever we work with. Not necessarily the product, because that will come from a good working relationship with a developer. So this is the initial plan that came back. There were 79 units, or this is the 66 units. This is the second phase or second design of this. The idea was more of a distributed apartment complex. Instead of 4 or 5 stories, units stacked on top of each other, give everybody some smaller homes, 1s, 2s, and 3s, mostly 2s and 3s, and put it in an area with a lot of open space and with easy connection to the trail system of Lansing. We did have 2 versions. The first one was 79, had some studios and more 1s than 2s and 3s. Changed that after some internal conversations. This is an example of what those could look like, but I want you to keep that in mind, because that's where I think we want this to be more of an aesthetically pleasing neighborhood. I like the term kind of resident-focused, human-oriented, not necessarily auto-oriented with a bunch of garages on the front of the houses, right? This is that site plan, but here's what I want to kind of focus on. We want to get to an affordable, not an affordable capital A, but kind of a more attainable housing development. And running the numbers, On top, there is you see 180, 190, 200, 210. That would be cost per square foot. And if you run the numbers through, you multiply that by the square footage, and with an estimated mortgage payment at 6.5% interest rate, plus the taxes. So not including insurance, because I don't know how to necessarily really add that in right now. We're looking at somewhere around anywhere from $880 per month for a mortgage payment up to about $3,000. Okay, $3,000 is about normal at this point, but that's kind of where we're at. What we're looking at is a large investment in the city, right? This is again estimates, rough estimates, but we're looking at somewhere north of $20 million investment. If a project like this at 60 to 70 units gets built on that property, right? So we're looking at fairly sizable investment. Looking at this, the per unit cost is still over $300,000. Okay, and that's on average. That's not per unit, but an average. It's still going to be rather expensive. I want to point out there the estimated percentage costs for construction, for lot finishing, profit, and other, that came from the National Association of Home Builders estimate in 2024. So it's a little bit dated now, but it's the best available data that I have. Okay. We are looking at anything and everything as we are looking at this project to be able to move the needle, to make sure that this is feasible for a developer, right? But I want to bring this up because this is the construction breakdown from that survey. We have building fees, we have sewer connection fees, we have that type of impact on the development. But on average across the nation, you're looking at, for a building permit fee, about 2% added on top of the cost, right? We have in the past waived building permit fees. That's not nothing, but we are looking at small percentage points, not like major percentage points. Obviously, we've also dealt with, worked on price of land in the city. So I would assume that would be another lever we could pull, and that would have a little bit bigger impact. So we had the September 2025 discussion. We have, and I put into the packet, a draft of the RFQ. That's where we're at. Once we walk through that process and we get a go or no-go decision from you guys, then we can start to work on getting the land entitled in terms of the zoning plus the site, the actual site plan, and then we'd work on getting it actually developed. In this process, I want to make sure that we find the right developer, right, the right partner to come in and perform and be able to have a public-private partnership that results in something that fits Lansing's context, right? Housing that fits Lansing's context and the residents here. Once we find that right fit, the details we will start to work out. In the RFQ, we put in a fairly lengthy period that we will be able to negotiate the terms of the deal, right? Development agreement, memorandums of understanding. But I want to focus on home types that are oriented towards the people living there, and being able to empower them to build a neighborhood. It'll have multiple different types of houses, whether that's small lot or very small lot detached, or small lot detached duplexes, townhomes, that type of thing. We're gonna have multiple types of homes in that area, and then we also want to be flexible, right? This is kind of an incubator. I wouldn't call it trial balloon. It is something new for us. It is being done across the country, but we want to have flexibility to bring in potentially multiple partners, potentially phase this in so that we see how it gets absorbed into the market, and then the developer can come back and say, no, let's finish this project or something to that effect. We're going to have flexibility, and we're going to try to get the best possible project into the city that we can. And that's really kind of where I'm going to end. I'll open it up for questions from there. You were provided the RFQ. Are there questions about that, about anything I said tonight?
I'm not sure how deep I got into that, but
We're on the horn, so, Kevin, you got something?
so the request for qualifications, we're setting parameters for the request for proposal.
Yep.
Okay, and so one of my concerns is separating that parking lot from the pool.
Yep.
So that people that live in that area can't use that parking lot for a driveway.
That is something to consider. We can address that through some separation, whether that's buffers or something to that effect. If you look at this is the parcel map. At some point, we are going to have to split this parcel off because I foresee us selling this to a developer, and so we will need to split that. And then there will be a buffer that'll have to go in between this type of use and the house, houses.
I'm also thinking of you're going to have a lot of houses and a lot of kids there. I don't want them to have
Potentially.
access to vandalizing that pool and getting back in the house before police can respond to
That is true. I know that the aquatic center has had security cameras installed, so that'll help deter.
That will help, but I just don't want access to where it can't happen unless they deliberately do it. I just don't want them to do it on a spur of the moment. Say, hey, let's do this. So, also I saw on that design there's some of those houses didn't have parking there. It was on the other side of another house.
Correct. Yep.
Will they all, whoever does a request for proposal, each house have their own access to a parking lot or a parking spot? I should say.
Have access to, yes. Whether that looks like a driveway or that's shared parking, I don't know.
Yeah, I saw where they had
the plan. The site plan is shared more than it is individual driveways.
On that one, you had like 120, not counting handicap, you had like 120 parking spots for 66 units. So, and also I don't know if they do this automatically on the request proposal. Could all the designs go through Chief Wayman and Chief Gates for access and?
That'll be part of the site plan review.
Okay. They go through that before it comes
Well,
to the
the
council.
Chief Gates does. Typically, the police don't have a lot of review in development processes.
And playground. I didn't see any playgrounds in there. Are they going to be going over and using the elementary school, the children that live in that area?
That is something to consider.
Okay.
Josh, when you're talking about a new build, what is the cost per square foot in this case?
It will depend on the developer, honestly. In September, I brought up the fact that we were able to, Hakes Brothers down in Baser was delivering $200 a square foot to the buyer. So that's probably, they have a little bit higher finish quality than others, but I'm thinking somewhere in the 190 range. 180 if we get, I won't say lucky. There are developers doing that and doing a high quality product at 180. It's
180 a square foot.
yeah, it's 180 a square foot. It's in today's environment it's difficult, but it's doable. I don't know
So
who's going to be interested.
that seems really low to me. So I would
It-
say much
it-
higher.
Yeah, so that 200 I think is going to be a kind of the sweet spot, but I've never built anything, so want to partner with somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about.
I've got three things. One, have you reached out to any developers to gauge any interest when this RFQ hits the street, or are you going to advertise it and not get any responses?
I am hopeful that we are going to get at least a couple of responses. I've talked with 3 developers who are very interested. There have been a couple others who have said, potentially. Just kind of depends on what their schedule is. But yeah, the next couple of weeks, I built in kind of a wide buffer for it to be distributed. Made some contacts with the Kansas City Home Builders Association and others who I think will help be able to get that out.
Cool. My next one is, are there any available grants to help facilitate anything like this, maybe through the state? Not necessarily anything that we would need to match, but like the home grant or anything along those lines that might support this effort?
This would be, I think, an ideal use of the MIH program that Jeremy Greenemeyer is using for Fairlane. But I know that is competitive, and I don't know when that grant cycle starts again. So,
okay. All right, and then my last thing really doesn't have a lot to do with this, but it does something concurrently some of the other municipalities in the metro area are doing, something called a portfolio home, like Overland Park has it for an example. And I think we have a good start of it. You've got all of these conceptual designs for these homes. What Overland Park has done is made all these designs free and pre-approved the building plans. So if I bought a lot and I wanted to build a home, I could go in Overland Park and get this free home design, and my plan is already designed and I know it's going to meet permit, and then I can immediately go to like a design or build. So I do think that might be an opportunity we can run concurrently with this.
Yeah, that I've had conversations with the company who did Overland Park's plans, and so the pre-approved building plans are one of those things that cities have looked at and are implementing. There's a couple of different questions you need to ask, whether or not the city's going to foot the bill on the building plans, or if they're going to, or if we would subsidize, or if we would just pre-approve them and say, hey, go buy these plans and you can go build, right? So those are some questions to ask. I went and listened to his name's Matthew, and Matthew Perry, I think. And I'd love to have him come talk to you guys. I'm sure that he used to be a city councilman in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and got into this world. And it's an interesting story, interesting conversation. But yeah, I am interested in it as well. That is one of those things, though, that
Who is this guy?
Matthew Perry. He runs Pattern Co.
Okay.
And they have, you can either buy plans from them. Of course, it's 2026, so they also have a subscription that you can purchase on a yearly basis. The city could purchase on a yearly basis, and then they would refresh the plans every so often.
Overland Park, if you get on their website, it's pretty cool how they've got it set up. You can even, like, if
Pick your home plan.
you could click a parcel, and it'll give you the homes that meet the parameters that you could pull from out of this portfolio to build on the parcel.
That's cool.
But it's like exactly like what Josh has in his proposal in the RFQ. If you look at it, it's not a typical home that you would envision being built in Overland Park. It's more of a very entry level, very very attainable for somebody who just wanted to have a house and a roof over their head.
I know we're not in this to make money.
Yeah.
But we are spending taxpayer dollars, so we're gambling. And anytime you gamble, you want to make some money. So at what point, and is it at the RFQ, will this person say, okay, it's going to cost you A to do this. I need B to help you with it. Your profit's going to be C.
That is an excellent question that we could address. That would be more of a policy decision from you guys.
Okay.
So
Yes, your question is, are we selling the land to the developer?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
the question is like how much control if we are incentivizing them via the cost of land, like how much do we want to be involved, right? How much do we want to be involved as a partner, right?
Right.
So there's a couple of ways we could attack that. I have seen similar projects where they don't sell the land fee simple, right?
Right.
It's a lease. It's a ground lease. I'm not necessarily saying that we need to do that, but that is an option. And then we still have control, right? We still have control of the land. I'm not saying that we necessarily want to do that. I'm not saying that the developers would want that necessarily. I can see both sides of that argument for them, right?
And one thing that I'll add that Josh and I spoke about quite a bit, housing incentives were kind of a hot topic last summer, if any of you guys recall those discussions. But
Vaguely.
I was waiting for laughter when I said that. But
We're still hurt.
one of the things that is kind of challenging, Monroe Manor isn't on the tax rolls for 8 years. Fairlane Townhomes won't be on the tax roll for 8 years. So I know Josh and I were brainstorming, what is a way that we can encourage growth and development and get it on the tax rolls quicker. So it helps the city, helps the school district, and whether that's some type of land discount or donation, whether that's waiving sewer fees, building permit fees, or whatever else we can do. If there's ways we can incentivize growth and development and get it on the tax rolls faster, that helps out us, helps out the school. And when you think about it, I don't know if 60 units, will happen or not, but even if it's 30 units, even if it's 20 units, the valuation generated on that would generate tens of thousands of dollars for the city, for the school district, first year. So I think that was kind of one of the things.
Initially, when you came to us, that's what I thought was appealing, is that
Well, and I
we
was-
would collect money
Yeah.
on the
And
onset.
I think that was one of the things that and I hope I'm not jumping on something you were going to say. I think one of the things that we kind of wanted feedback on, because I think when Josh puts this out on the street, he will have developers calling him saying, can I get a 10-year whatever?
Right.
And it's helpful to Josh, helpful to me if we're able to say,
No.
no, no, but this is what the council is willing to do if people are on the same page on incentives. And maybe that is an IRB, but for 5 years. Well, I guess it wouldn't be IRB if it's fee simple.
Yeah, well, if they wanted to build it for rent, yes, we could do an IRB. If they wanted to do it to sell, obviously not obviously. IRBs are available for commercial properties, not you're selling the land later on. So just FYI for that. So
Rebecca.
Okay. How are we defining affordable housing, and will those requirements be binding? Because you said anywhere from 800 to 3K, and I feel like 3K, I wouldn't consider that affordable housing.
sure. That's an excellent question, and the stickiest question in the world of housing right now. The definition, the working definition that we have for affordable is 30% of your monthly annual income, or annual income, right? Depending on how you want to run the numbers. I am not proposing, I don't know if we will get development that say, hey, we will put on the deed, this is reserved for 80% area median income. People making 80% of the area median income, which for reference, for a single person would be about $80,000. Or 60 or 30, whatever, right? I'm not anticipating those type of deed restrictions on these houses. 3,000 also does not seem affordable to me. thinking about my financial situation. It's not affordable to me, but it is something to consider. In this project, the city doesn't have, I don't think, the capacity to layer on other subsidies to be able to bring that down.
Josh, was your $3,000 a month number based off of one unit with three? Because three people are going to pay that, not just one.
Correct. Right? Yeah. So that would be for if the home is built at $210 a square foot for the largest 3-bedroom home. That would be down here in the bottom right corner.
And but that's for all 3 units, right? That, and you would divide it by 3 and
no, that's for a single home.
For a single unit.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So for a single 3-bedroom at 1,900 square feet, multiply that, multiply 1920 by 210, add a payment in there for the mortgage, add some taxes, and you're looking at somewhere around $3,000.
Okay, gotcha.
I have more. I'm sorry.
More than I'm paying for 10 acres.
Okay. What was the reason behind selecting the out-of-state architect? I noticed they were from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. They're a well-respected name in the urban planning architecture world.
Those are just ideas you got from them, right?
Ideas. Highly influential. They're doing this work in multiple cities across the country. They're providing the architectural services for those projects. So they have skin in the game, and they're doing this work. So I knew that they knew what they were talking about. And I'm not aware of anybody in Lansing or really in the Kansas City area that is doing quite this level of
Kansas. Nobody in the state of Kansas is doing this right here.
No architecture firms are taking a crack at this in the state that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. I'd be happy to be proved wrong.
Okay. And then what financial risks does the city take on if this project underperforms? Will it revert back onto us?
That depends on how the development agreement is written. Obviously, my first priority for the city is to protect the city. If we sell it fee simple, there is no risk other than being out a couple of acres of land, and we don't have access to that land any longer.
That was one of the things that's a little bit appealing to me about this, is the fact that I do feel like that is a parcel right now that we have no plans for. It's really underutilized. And I do think there's pretty minimal risk to the city, like putting out an RFQ, there's no financial risk to us. Right. If someone comes back and says, hey, I want to invest 10, 15, $20 million, that's gravy for the city based on what that property is generating now. And again, if the goal is 60 units and say it underperforms and they only build, again, 15, 20, 25, whatever that number is, that's still 25 units of housing that's on the tax rolls that's not on there now. So that's one of the things that's appealing to me about it. I do feel like it's minimal risk. Like if we were looking at doing this with a parcel in town center, I think I'd be reluctant because that's marketable property on K7. The parcel we're looking at is very underutilized and we don't have plans for it.
And in 3.6 of the MOU, I tried to make it extremely clear in a couple of different points that the city might walk away from this. Right? Like I don't want to do that. I would feel like you can only do that a couple of times before word gets around, and then people are like, we're not going to work with the city any longer. But if we get to the point where we don't like any of these proposals, we don't like we don't feel comfortable with any of these developers, maybe we need to rethink this. I think that we have the capacity within the RFQ to say, hey, we're going to rethink this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Chris, do you have any?
How was the topography for that area? I mean, I know there's,
Yeah.
is there a lot of dirt that would have to be moved to make that?
Yeah, there would be some. Let's see, is it visible
Because that
on
goes
this?
all the way to,
Yeah. So to orient, let's see, to orient ourselves with this. This trail is proposed, and there's nothing here because this is all floodplain.
yeah.
Okay. This is designed, I want to say that this right here, no, okay, that's striped. So that striped area here is a place where the grade is too much, right? It would be too steep. There's water and sewer line here, and the grade would be too steep to make it really viable. So we would be working in that realm and working around the land. At this point, it kind of depends on what the site plan comes back with, right? Or the developer would come back with the site plan, right? It's easier to talk about, hey, is this idea of putting 80, 60 units on this site a good idea with something like this drawn up, right? And so, again, I would love to work with Kronberg and have the developer work with them. I'm not tied to that. I'm not tied necessarily to this project looking like this in 2 years when it actually goes up, you know. But that gets into the soils are good. We had pulled soil samples from the aquatic center, and we were going to put the aquatic center here. Decided that for that purpose, it doesn't work. The soils weren't great for that. But for residential homes like this, no, this could work.
The last question I had is, what is the plan to talk about this with the comprehensive plan team?
They are aware of the fact that I'm trying to run both projects concurrently. I have reached out to them. I provided this to them and worked with that, or asked them about developers in the area who would be interested in this. Honestly, like, this is one of those things that getting something like 60 units on 4 acres, I think would be very good for the city, because it shows that you can do this type of work, and people get scared of the word density, right? This would show that density isn't necessarily a 5-story, 4/1 apartment complex that you see along 435 going down to Lenexa, right? You can get those levels of density with well-designed homes that might be 2 or 3 connected, maybe 4 or 5, depending.
I'm not disagreeing.
Right.
I think it's a great idea, but there's some good things that were brought up here tonight
Sure,
that definitely should be addressed prior
sure,
to.
of course. So it's running concurrently, and I think that this would help. I think some of the goals that are going to come out of the comprehensive plan are going to be around housing and also financial security for the city. You know, things are not getting cheaper, so we got to figure out a way of getting more people in the community, and so doing that in a more dense environment was going to help.
I think if we get a win-win there, it would help the entire town center area. So that's my take on it.
Pete, did you have anything?
No, sir.
Jesse? You already said yours.
Good.
Okay, so I have some. Are there any codes that we need to change? I mean, right now we have 40 foot is the minimal.
Yeah.
You're going to fit 60 on 4 acres, so is that
what-
going to require any?
What I am envisioning is utilizing the city's existing R3 zoning district So we would not need to change it. If we can fit this in under that, we would not need to change anything. Okay.
So R3 would fit single-family, little
Yep.
homes? Okay, didn't know that.
Yep. In fact, R3 districts, when you subdivide, you are required to have multiple different types of, there can be no more than 50% of one type of home. So no more, and there's different category. There's small lot. I don't have my book with me, of course, but there's small lot, there's detached single family, there's duplex, triplexes, small apartments, large
So
apartments.
these will all be different. So there may be duplexes, triplexes, and single-family, all in the same area? Okay. Next question is traffic. So I'm looking at we just put an apartment complex in, right?
Yep.
Across the street, or just on the other side of the school. We're putting a shopping center in on the corner there. I'm just curious as to, do we need to do a traffic study on how are all these people going to get out?
Yeah, that'll be
in
part
and
of
around?
the development agreement.
Yeah,
Or
especially with the
sorry,
school
the
right
development,
across the street, man.
the development process, right? So in the site plan process, in the subdivision process, we will need to figure that out. So, but again, it comes back to what comes in. So we will address that at some point in the,
And I mean, just from my personal experience, like, the city doesn't own a lot of property, and we bought that property, I thought, for green space and like an aquatic center and for just parks and trail systems. To me, stuffing more homes in there doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm just saying that from my perspective, because when we bought that property, we were thinking parkland and trail systems in and around our school and our city center. So that's just my own personal opinion. And the last one is, do we need it? I mean, we got 190 homes going up off DeSoto. We just put 54 units across the street from this one. Are we jumping the gun to say we haven't kind of fulfilled some of the needs that we have in the city? I don't know. If the price point for a home in this neighborhood is 300, or 3,000 a month, you could get a home over in DeSoto there for less than that.
That's a almost a 2,000 square foot home.
Right.
which would lend itself to there's kind of, to me, would lend itself to saying that maybe my estimates are wrong or high on some of these, right?
Well, I would say, I mean, I'm paying like 23 for a home.
Right.
That's probably
So then
570
so
or
then
something, and 10 acres. So I don't think that's going to be that kind of mortgage on these. But what we don't know is what the mortgages are going to be, right, over in the DeSoto area.
right.
For Monroe.
Yeah, for
I think
Monroe
you have a
Manor.
general
And then, does that fit the bill for our needs that we said we needed in the city? Like, we know we need X amount of housing.
To that, it's an excellent question, and kind of depending on who you talk to, I think you get a little bit different answers. Covington Woods fits a very specific need that is income restricted. It is providing housing to 60% of the area median income or lower. Monroe Manor, while more entry level than other subdivisions in the county and the area, also is still pushing 400,000. So this would slide in somewhere a little bit different, and I envision this not necessarily just families, but also folks who are trying to downsize, folks who are trying to get started, single folks who are trying to get started. So.
I'm interested I'm sorry, Tim.
I was just going to say really quick, too, I do think to an extent market will dictate this. And if there is not a market for this, I don't think people will invest what was
$20 million.
$20 million or whatever. But if someone feels like, hey, I like that. I almost kind of wish we weren't focused on that site plan. You know what I mean? Just because I do feel like there's different things people could do that would be a benefit to the city. And I think the market will dictate that. Even with some level of incentives on our part, someone would still be spending tens of millions of dollars to build something. And I don't think they would spend that level of money if they didn't feel like they'd be able to sell them or rent them. So I do feel like to an extent the market will dictate that. And again, Josh and I have spoken about this a little bit. Like similar to you, Mr. Pierce, I struggle like visualizing that property kind of, you know what I mean? But again, if a developer has an engineer who looks at it and says, hey, maybe not 66, but maybe, whatever that number is, maybe it works. But I do feel like, again, it's city property, but the people ponying up all the money will be private developers.
Thinking outside the box, which I think this does, I would never consider till I looked at this that we would build one-bedroom units, 480 square feet. I'm trying to picture what that would even look like in my mind and how small that yard would be, and because I don't know. I'm just I'm ignorant on that.
I can provide this if I remember tomorrow. But Lennar, one of the largest home builders in the country, recently made some waves rolling out. I want to say they were 12-foot wide, 2-story, 12 to 16 feet wide, 2-story, 2-bedroom houses, right? Very, very small. I don't remember the overall square footage. Very, very small. The 1-bedrooms are there as, again, the idea started as more of a distributed apartment, and also recognizing the fact that household size is shrinking in this country.
Right.
Most households are one person.
Well,
or 2 people, sorry. But one person is no longer the exception.
I tried to use as a gauge, if you looked at Greenemeyer property behind IHOP, thank you. If you cut those in half, aren't those like around 700 square feet, if I'm not mistaken?
I think they might be a little bit long.
The new ones?
Yeah.
I thought those were 1,100.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Then I
Remember when we toured it, he gave us a
I
piece
know.
of paper that had the price on it, and I was like, really?
yeah.
So again,
So these wouldn't have
the
any
developer
fenced yards,
the developer can come in and pitch
right? And just-
what they're comfortable building, right? Because a lot of this is going to be dependent on what they're comfortable building, right?
Sure.
They might be willing to take, knowing that they have the support of the council from the outset, is going to let them play in areas of their box that they don't, or with toys that they don't necessarily get out of the box very often, if that metaphor works, right? And so I'm excited to see what comes out of that. Maybe they don't like 1-bedrooms. Okay, cool, right? Maybe they say, well, we can try it. We think that there's a market for it. And I think that there is. I know enough singles in the area, and just kind of knowing that, my backstory, and trying not to read my backstory into other people's backstories, but it could work. So anyway,
I know our apartment complexes have gone in, if I'm not mistaken. Covington Woods too. Those are all 2-bedroom, right? There's
Or even.
or 3, but there aren't any 1-bedrooms on there.
I don't know.
I don't think there is.
And I was surprised that there wouldn't be at least a few 1-bedroom apartments, but
think there are some one bedrooms over on Gamble, aren't there?
In the yards in these areas, like,
Where you're at, Jesse?
Yeah, behind my house.
there are no
Those are
yards,
one bedroom?
right?
I think there's one bedrooms over there.
Again,
Really?
depends on what the developer brings in.
Yeah,
those are Everly
There
people.
needs to be they need to be oriented to public space, right? And so in that site plan, I would have foreseen an HOA to be able to maintain the open spaces, but also in these projects, you have to have private space, right? And you have to be able to delineate, this is where my yard ends, and this is, even if that yard is the width of this table from here to, to sidewalk to front porch, you need to be able to delineate those areas. And so there would have been some private yard around the homes.
So you
but
could have fenced-in yards.
you could have a very
Because if I'm going to buy a brand new home, I'm thinking as
I think you'd
a
need
new
a dog
couple or
park.
something, and I have a pet.
You're gonna
I'm
need a
just
dog
going to
park.
buy a house that's got
and
open.
that would be a park, right? Dog park, something. Shared open patio with a grill or something like that. Like, we didn't get that far into it. Again, conceptual site plan, and
Well, I
to
guess-
spark the conversation, just like we've had the conversation tonight and in September.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Next step is to release this RFQ into the wild and see if I'm crazy or if there's actually going to be some responses. There will be some responses. I've talked to enough developers to say that there will be. So it could be both. It could be both.
Yes to both, Josh.
I didn't say it out loud.
Yeah, so we'd get these requests for qualifications back, and they would give us some kind of idea of what they would do, and then we can, as a governing body, decide,
Right.
or,
I would
that sounds good.
I would suggest that we put together, kind of like with the comprehensive plan, we would put together a committee, a couple of council members, maybe a couple staff. We can work out those
Yeah.
details at a later date. But I wouldn't necessarily do like a committee of the whole with all of the council members. But that's not.
No, eventually we'll all vote on it.
Oh, that's
though.
true.
So that's all I was saying. Yeah.
Before you put this like request out, are we gonna like define the limits of like incentives?
We
'Cause,
did
like-
not. We are leaving it open because again, some developers might be able to come in. I'm not expecting this, but they might come in with very minimal incentive requests, right? Beyond maybe cost of land or maybe nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They may come in and say they want to put 30 units in there,
They might,
or 66, and
Right.
this is my proposal.
Right,
So,
and so in the RFQ, we said that 3.3, the city envisions this project as a public-private partnership. At this stage, the city anticipates considering multiple tools to contribute to the affordability of the project. It's pretty vague on purpose. Some of the criteria that we will be scoring on will be who's asking for what, right? And so at that point, we'll be able to make a better decision or better recommendation. The committee will be able to make a better recommendation. Hey, yes, we want to do this. We don't want to do this. And then ultimately, again, you guys have to approve the development agreement.
All right, anybody got anything else for Josh? Okay. There's nothing further than we are adjourned, I think.